Hey everybody, welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. Today is a very special episode as we have Tamara joining us. Welcome, Tamara. So very excited to have a new addition to the team. Go team. So very excited. Tamara is now part of the Planet Technologies team, working as one of our learning strategists. So excited to have her, and it just is a perfect fit to have her join this team and talk to us about the Office 365, Microsoft 365 updates. I'm going to have a hard time saying Microsoft 365.
That's a big transition.
Hard, so hard. All right. Well, I was very nice to Tom last week and did not steal any of his thunder, and he in turn stole all of my thunder. So the niceness is gone, Tom. I'm going to start this week. So I'm going to go within development and pick one, and then we'll pass it off to Tamara, and you can go third. So
ouch.
The first one I am going to do is a group chat with 250 people is in development. So sometimes you need to kick off a big project chat with a large group or an ad hoc discussion with a staff event. That's probably more so what it's like if you had a big staff event or something like that. That could be the only time I could imagine you need a big chat with 250 people. If you had a project with 250 people, that would be a really big project, but they are working in development that you can get a group chat going to that many. So imagine a division meeting, something like that, where you could do that. So that group chat, maybe a group chat there. So there are, keep in mind though, we did say that there are chat control features and stuff like that that also are in development and launching. So I don't think you need to be overly concerned about this feature. There are ways that you can control it. So there we go. So that is in development, supposed to be releasing in May. I know a lot of people are probably looking forward to this, especially now since these big groups and stuff like that are working from home. So that is something that's in development, should be coming soon. Hey, May 2020 is in like 3 days. So it could be, we could be seeing it hit to that next feature set rolling out pretty soon, but that is in development. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Tamara.
Well, I was just going to say,
go ahead, Adam.
I'm happy they're adding in controls because you all know there's going to be that one guy who's probably named like William or, Jerry or something like that, who just thinks he'll just, casually talk like 30 times to a group of 250 people. So having the admin controls in there is something that I'm happy to see.
Of course.
Yeah, good to have a little bit of control there. So the one that I was looking at is the background effect policy for tenant administrators for Microsoft Teams. So they're going to be allowing people to upload their own background, but the administrators now will be able to set a policy that will allow them to choose whether or not there are any backgrounds that are available, blurred only, or use a default of the provided images, or all, meaning they can use any image that they want. So I like that there's some control there, especially for some of the government clients.
Do you think on May the 4th they could restrict it to its only Star Wars backgrounds?
Oh, you would.
I think that would be awesome.
I'll have you
April
notice
1st, it could be like some other joke. This could be fun.
I'll have you notice I'm in the hallway of a Star Destroyer right now. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
We did notice.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, that's in development and it's supposed to roll out May 2020.
Well, and I think it's also good linked up to that is the fact that they're going to now, it looks like, provide you the official way to add new images out there rather than the hack that everybody knows about. So yeah, we've been still not telling people at work about the pathway, even though like day one, all of our senior bosses figured out the hack and they were all doing their own things. Like, yeah, no, I'm just not going to tell people about this yet. So that'll be a good one to see.
Yeah, benefit, I guess, of working at an IT company. The first day that it was out there, like 3 different of my group chat said it, and we got onto a call with our VP. He's like, "Hey, you guys have to be doing this. If you're not, it's great." And it's like, yeah.
Oh.
How about you, Adam? Oh, did you do one, Tom? You didn't do it. Go do it.
I haven't
We
done
all know
one
I'm
yet.
going to do the boring admin stuff no one wants anyway. Go ahead, Tom.
There's a ton of boring admin stuff out there, Adam. You've got everything to talk about this week. for SharePoint extended layouts for site footers.
That's cool.
I think this is really cool because they're going to give you the ability to put more information in the footer, as well as having a colored background. And, you know, given the environment that I came from, we had a standard footer that went on everything. But I really like the idea of having a color that sets it apart instead of it just looking like a run-on part of the page. And you really do see it as, oh, this is a footer. So I'm really looking forward to that one coming out so we can help people design pages that follow a little bit more of a standard rather than just, hey, I put anything I want to on the page, and if it's at the bottom, it must be a footer. There's actually going to be a lot more control there. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually do one that's technically not really an admin-y thing, but something that, should you choose to use it, could be used to reflect positively on you in the workspace. So for a while,
Well,
So for a while, this has been a thing through some add-ons that you had the ability to do in Outlook, but it was actually an add-on. I believe it might have even been in FineTime originally, but it was an add-on that Microsoft had developed. So they've now, over time, started going through and integrating this functionality in the core part of Outlook. But I've seen this suggested multiple times from, like, Microsoft employees that were talking about it. And I think it's kind of an interesting thing to know. They're developing an Outlook on the web, what they're calling the send later feature, where basically you can go through and you can schedule emails to send. Now, there's a couple really legitimate reasons for this. It could be, hey, we're doing some sort of, patching or maintenance, and I want to make sure I'm not sending out an email. Or, oh, I'm going to go ahead and pre-schedule an email to go out to people, letting them know like a new thing has launched. I'm going to be worrying about making sure on the back end everything's good from the launch, so I don't want to have to take my time to sit down and send an email out to people. But you could also theoretically say, okay, I'm going to schedule this email to send out 5 minutes before the end of the day to send an update to everyone, so then it looks like I've been working all day and have this wonderful email to go out. Or maybe I'm going to or maybe I'm going to schedule this email to send out on the weekend, so that way it looks like I was being good and working on the weekend. Now, I'm not saying you should be dishonest and manipulate features like that. I'm just saying that should the opportunity present itself, you might theoretically have the ability to do that and send emails whenever you would like.
Oh, Adam, we're there. We're so there.
Oh, Adam, things you shouldn't say on a call with leadership.
Yeah, and I was about to say, and for the record, for the last 2 years, about a year and 3/4 of that, Jenn was my boss.
I, on the other hand, being the only non-Planet Tech person, I can say those things and get away with them.
Silly. Well, another one we have is Microsoft Teams inline message translation for Office 365 GCC and GCC High. So this is when you can have message translation where the global translation is going to be happening. This is already in the enterprise tenant. Now it's going into the GCC and GCC High tenant. So this is just one of those feature parity things that's rolling out to those additional tenants. So that's a good feature that's coming. I think, does anyone want to talk about the 2 Yammer ones that are coming? If not, I can take those. I think those are the last 2. No one jumped up. So Yammer, some events updates. Some events updates to calendars. So just the way it goes to portrait and regular mode on mobile, and then restricted post in the all company feed. They're going to restrict, Bob and Karen from posting to everybody in the all company feed. So they're going to restrict that.
Which is a good idea. That's that is actually one of my clients that fully went down the Yammer journey and really wanted to make it work. That was one of their biggest complaints, was like there wasn't as much curation around limiting junk. And so cool to see that update coming.
Yeah. Well, cool. All right. So those are in development. So now just remember, in development means back in the factory at Microsoft, the making of the sausage, everything that's going on in the dog food, they're building it out. It's in development. The next category is rolling out, which means we should start to see it in all of our tenants. It's a trickle effect. So just because you don't see it, it means it just hasn't hit your tenant yet. So in the rolling out cycle means that we are getting there. So there we go. So we will start here, and I'm going to let Tom go first.
We've talked about most of the things that I saw that I thought were of interest, but one of the ones I just wanted to bring forward again is the version history in desktop.
So excited about that one.
Yeah. Using OneDrive, you can now, if you've got multiple files out there, you've got your version history and the whole bit, using File Browser or Mac Finder, if you're a Mac person, you'll actually be able to look at the versions within there and restore from there instead of you having to go out to OneDrive and the browser and see what you've got and redo it from there. It's just like, hey, here's my files. Hey, look, what are my versions? Hey, I want to restore. Boom, you've got it. I think that's one of those things that will make OneDrive even more usable and special for people because they will be able to see something that they've never seen before when it comes to looking at files using File Explorer or something like that.
Yep.
So that'll be cool.
I've got one that I'm really excited about that's rolling out, and that is Microsoft's Forms Pro for GCC. And so some of the things you get with Forms Pro has to do with the complexity of forms. So we know Microsoft Forms is a super simple forms tool. And we know that when we talk about the end of InfoPath, we really have two options. We have Microsoft Forms for the super simple stuff. We have SharePoint List for the medium stuff. And then we have Power Apps for anything else. And ideally, we'd like to get one of the three solutions to work for us. And I think for the super simple stuff, we get Microsoft Forms. For the SharePoint List, we're getting there with a lot of the stuff we've been talking about that's in development and rolling out. Power Apps, more advanced. But the Forms, it's almost simple enough. Pro makes it a few more features so that it's simple enough, almost simple enough. I don't have to go to a SharePoint list and I can still keep it in there. A lot of people want that. Hey, I don't want SurveyMonkey, but I need something just like SurveyMonkey at a corporate level. Great. I need you to use Microsoft Forms. So being able to have Forms Pro is going to give me some more features there. So I'm very excited that that is coming to GCC. So excited about that. That's rolling out there. So that still leaves us with GCC High and DoD. It's not rolling out there yet, but we're at GCC. So that's the pieces there. We're getting there. We're one step closer. So we have that one. So Tamara, I just called you like 3 different names. Tamara.
That's okay. I've been called worse. So
do you have one that looks interesting?
Yeah, I was looking at the updates to recipient experience for specific people links. So they're updating the experience for the specific people links to make it more streamlined for people. And when the users in the organization receive a specific people link to files or folders in OneDrive or in SharePoint, they're no longer going to see the page telling them to click next to sign in. So it should make sharing a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm impressed that you were able to say specific that many times without stumbling over the word. That was really well done.
Thank you.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, and this is really like the file share experience is what they're talking about. When you say, I don't want to share to everyone, I want to share to Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to roll.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well,
I was going to roll a couple together. I got it. Go.
Yeah, well, I'm 99% confident that no one wants to do the one I'm doing, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to roll the Outlook ones together. So we've got Outlook for Android, suggested people, and actionable search answers. So you get an answer. It's going to let you take an action on it. So call John, stuff like that. Time zone support, so you can schedule meetings in different time zones. That's actually helpful if I'm trying to schedule a meeting and I know what time zone they're in, and sometimes math is hard. And then reporting spam or phishing, you can do that from within the Outlook for iOS app, which is actually pretty important. And then a new GA experience of mobile browsers with special instances. And so a lot of that is just streamlining and cleaning up the Outlook for iOS and the Outlook for Android, as well as Outlook on the web. So I think there's just a lot of activity in that mobile Outlook experience. So I'll kind of bundle all of that into one update because I don't think any one of them individually is a shocker. Okay, Adam, go for it. I know which one you're going to talk about because everyone else is like, okay.
Run away.
So there's actually a really cool update coming into Azure Information Protection and what's around sensitive labeling. So Microsoft for the last year and a half has been working on what they call unified labeling. For the longest time, there were two distinct labeling experiences in Office 365. There was one for retention and one for sensitive information, and they kind of lived in their own bubbles. Microsoft is trying to bring them together because when you say labeling and it means two different things, it was confusing. So in the process of trying to merge them together, that involved getting features out and by default in the Office suite and some stuff like that. Well, they're taking a leap forward. Basically, right now, if you go through and you label stuff that has sensitive information types, one of the most common things that people choose to do with that label is to add encryption. And so you go through and you say, okay, well, if I see a credit card number in this document anywhere, I want you to provide a level of encryption to it. It makes sense, right? You don't want customers' credit card information to be leaked out into the world. The problem with this, with how it worked up until now in Office 365, was if you added that level of encryption, it basically broke a whole bunch of other collaborative features of Office 365. The other types of features that gave insight, such as delve, such as co-authoring even some of the stuff related to like data loss prevention and stuff like that, didn't work once that encryption level was put on, because encryption was essentially being put on by a service that worked with Office 365, which kind of meant all the other things it was expecting to work didn't work. They're fixing that. So basically now, when you go through and you add classification that has encryption, Microsoft is going to be aware that you've done this through their new unified labeling experience and give their backend systems the ability to essentially peer through it. So the stuff like Delve and some of the collaborative features that you kind of come to expect and like in Office 365 are still going to work even on documents that you've gone through and labeled. So I think for 99% of us, nothing changes. But for the 1% that none of the collaboration features that they wanted to work because of this feature are going to be ecstatic when this comes out. So kind of cool to see it coming through and being released. Kind of a thing that, again, is another step forward in bringing the labeling worlds together under 365. So happy to see in something honestly long overdue.
Very cool.
Great.
Who wants to talk about Yammer?
Yammer. All right. The new Yammer. It's being rebuilt from the ground up. I know a lot of people will be very interested in that. So this is rolling out. It's got the Fluent design. Fluent design is using the fluid framework. And so what that means is, think of it as being able to go fluid between all of the applications. So I can have different components, and behind that, I might be looking at different pieces on a page. So if I see something here that's like task, behind the scenes, that's really just a front-end interface that's going to Planner or different things like that, because everything on the page is fluid and it's going together. So I'm fluid between all things Microsoft 365. So
yeah,
that's
the fluid
going
framework's awesome. Like
it's
when
very
you look,
cool.
when you look at it in practice, it can be like someone goes through and puts in a chart or a graph or a table that you're viewing in application A, that they're editing in application B that actually resides in application C, but you make one change one way and it replicates everywhere. So it really, really
and it's real
helps
time.
tie everything together. Yeah, exactly.
It's
Real time. It's not a delay that goes through.
Very cool. So
this brings
awesome.
Yammer up to being a valid enterprise application too, in my opinion. The whole idea, like not that Yammer was right for certain people, right? If you really wanted that online social networking experience, Yammer is a solution of how to do that in Office 365. And Yammer, when deployed properly, is great. The problem is it took a lot of curation. It took a lot of time to go on top of it. This is one of the things that instantly takes off some of the admin level work. If you're going through and you're building something on the Fluid framework where you can bring in references real times to points in other documents and other applications, things like that, and it's going to update for you. You don't have to go in and make sure the most recent version and stuff like that is in there. It instantly makes it more accessible and more relevant to users. So it's actually like, as much as I like to laugh about Yammer sometimes, like I think this is a huge feature set update that actually brings it to be an easier to deploy and thus consume product set.
Oh. Makes sense. Well, cool. Well, moving to launched, this means it should be in your tenant. Now, keep in mind, it's going to be in your tenant depending on which tenant it has launched to. So we'll kind of chat through those if information has been given for it. In most cases, that means the enterprise tenant, unless otherwise noted. So assume enterprise tenant unless otherwise noted, and then we'll kind of walk through it. So I'm going to let Tamara go first on this one.
Sure. I'd like to talk about the lobby and Teams. So one thing is that Microsoft microphone. Microsoft is changing the default Teams meeting policy to enforce the lobby in meetings for external users, but you can override that with a policy of your own creation. So the default will now be that external users will definitely go into a lobby. And then also there's going to be more control so that the organizer can change the lobby setting for the PSTN meeting participants. So the people that are dialing in, the organizer can change the lobby settings for that. So you'll now see a separate setting to control the lobby for PSTN participants in the meeting options page of a given meeting.
That's awesome.
So those two kind of go together.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. All right, Tom, I'll let you go second.
Okay, because there was only one thing I really saw in here that I thought I could speak to with anything. That is the updating the people with existing access links that come through. In Word documents, it's been, and this is in OneDrive, it's been doing the file previewers to open something up real quickly for you. That's now being extended off to other file types. So I'm assuming now, PDF files are going to launch in the browser. Other types of files that are non-Microsoft are going to start launching in the browser, which I think will, in most cases, give a very satisfactory thing to be able to see it real quickly without having to wait for, your CAD viewer to open or your, PDF, whatever you're using for that client. So I think that's going to make it really nice and make it much more consistent across the board instead of, well, why does this one launch the client and why does this one launch in the browser? It'll be consistent across the board. So I think that'll be nice. I'm looking forward to playing around with that one.
Cool. Well, there's only one that I think is relevant. I think we've talked a lot about the ones on this list this time, and that's why there's not a lot of things that are relevant for us. But I think it's the OneDrive for Business and Exchange usage reporting going into the GCC High tenants. So if you're in a GCC High tenant, now inside of your Office 365 Admin Center, you will have usage reporting on the activity for OneDrive for Business and Exchange. And I think that's a very good thing, especially for my team as we look at adoption and how are people using the tools. These usage reports are going to let you have an understanding about how users are interacting with the tools and what they're doing with them. One example that I like to say a lot with OneDrive and stuff like that, and one thing that we can get with usage is with OneDrive, how are people sharing documents internally? Are they doing a good job with that? Are they sharing a lot of things internally? Because you know what they're doing if they're not sharing internally? They're sending email attachments because we are sharing documents. Like, don't kid yourself. We're sharing documents. We're either sending them as attachments or we're using OneDrive. So that's a huge win you can make by sending out campaigns and starting to teach people, how do I share with OneDrive and how easy is it? But you don't do it around training, you do it around making someone's life easier and teaching them how to make it easier. And so having these reports and getting access to them, it gives you insight so that you can then take actionable steps on them. So very excited to see these reports jump into GCC High. So super excited about that one. So Adam, do you have anything from this section?
Yeah, I have a couple nerdy admin things, but we'll kind of do rapid fire and hit them up.
Rapid fire admin nerd stuff.
Boom, boom.
So this is a really weird off one, but basically the OneDrive sync client for the longest time didn't support OneNote files, which seems really weird. There's like 300 something supported files for OneDrive sync client, but OneNote files weren't one of them. So if you had OneNote files where you're going through and sync it up, and don't get me wrong, there's other ways to back up your OneNote, like it does it automatically. But like, say you had old OneNote files from an old folder you use that you're just wanting to back up, like that just didn't work with the sync client. They're fixing that, so now we'll be able to go through and do that. Another one, this harps back to my, when I originally started in IT and worked in email support. They are doing updates for the Outlook for iOS and Android that's basically going to fully support delegate permissions inside of those apps, which I cannot tell you. I would have had people that would have cried tears of joy that I worked with at my old job related to this. If you are someone who actively manages other people's mailboxes, so oftentimes for me, this would be like executives and their executive assistants, you would basically have to either fully set up their email address on your mobile phone or do all of your management through online or through the Outlook itself, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, especially with, people that travel a lot and stuff like that, that was a nightmare. So they're basically bringing delegate permissions to iOS and Android on the Outlook, where you can actually do things as a delegate, like go in and manage people's mail, manage people's inbox, stuff like that. Certain people this is going to be huge for. And then finally, there's actually two things that I thought was worth noting for Yammer. Jenn kind of started off last section talking about some of the new changes coming. And again, I see this as evolutions that bring Yammer up to be more playing with the big boys for the longest time, because Yammer was an acquisition into Microsoft. It kind of did that weird dance where sometimes you see acquisitions at Microsoft where it's at the dinner, but it's at the kids' table. Like, it doesn't have all the fun toys that the other people do. You're really starting to see Microsoft invest in some of the stuff to bring Yammer more to the forefront. So the two ones specifically that are launched now, e-discovery now fully works in Yammer. That was a big problem before. If you couldn't go through and find stuff happening in your Yammer network, oftentimes security and legal would have problems with you using it because you couldn't go through and discover it, which you might legally be required to. And then the other thing too, the Yammer app has now launched for Microsoft Teams, which Teams has taken off like wildfire, especially with all the coronavirus stuff going on. I think for a while there, Microsoft was doing something like adding 12 million users a day or a week, something like that, to Teams. Like, the amount of people that was added in was just absolutely phenomenal. I also know Microsoft right now is pushing for a whole bunch of different product sets, from business all the way up to GCC, that you can get 6 months of Office 365 or Microsoft 365 for free, including nice versions of Teams, if you sign up for a year contract, because again, they're trying to push the idea of, hey, we want to help people out while they're having to work remotely. But so having Yammer integration easily is just another program you can add in by hitting a little plus button on a tab in Teams. Again, makes it more accessible, makes it more of a viable option for people to consider. So again, if you've been interested in Yammer, you've tried it in the past and didn't find the integrations, this type of stuff is going to bring it back as a viable option if you want that social collaboration in a business setting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, last but not least, we do have a canceled one, but it doesn't matter, because by canceled, they just mean merged with another one because it's a duplicate. So doesn't matter. And that's the automatic classification of labeling documents in SharePoint OneDrive for Business. And I'm glad to see this, because I'm pretty sure this is one of our canceled from like a week or so ago. And we're like, don't worry about it because it's probably a duplicate. And now they gave us the notes to say that it is. So no worries. No canceled features we need to care about. So this is our update this week. I feel like this is our first update in a couple of weeks that's longer.
Actually
like
had content.
It's got a lot of good content. So not that they haven't been pushing things. They've been pushing a few really big things and not, spreading it out. But this feels like a nice meaty one. So we will be back next week with another round of updates. And Tamara will be with us. Woohoo! Thanks. Welcome again to the party. So
Thank you.
We will see everyone next week, and we'll get this posted hopefully today. Anyway, thanks.
Ooh, that was
that was a jab at Adam.